It has been a devastating week for Premier League clubs in Europe, and more in particular for two teams that are chasing the Premier League title. Now, Liverpool and Arsenal's collapse last week was unique in the sense that both of them were kind of expected to keep up with Manchester City as they chase the Premier League title. Now, Manchester City, we know, are a very relentless team. They have this uncanny ability to switch on towards the end of the season and to, if they're behind the teams, chase them down, hunt them down, and absolutely annihilate them. Now, this season, we saw a different Arsenal, at least as far as the post-Christmas break, that they went to Dubai, and when they came back, they looked like a team who had the eye of the tiger. They had this ability to go and win games, and in some cases, win them with such superior difference that pretty much by halftime, the games were all canceled out. Now, Liverpool, on the other hand, have looked like a team that has been extremely resilient. They have gone through a lot of trials and tribulations, not having a lot of the players, and also going through the sad news that they're going to be losing one of the most influential figures in their near future, which is Jurgen Klopp. But one of the things that we didn't see coming was the losses that both of them incurred this week. And with Manchester City having gone first and having thumped Luton Town, you would have expected a lot more of a response from both of those sides, despite the fact that both of them had not so good results in Europe. Now, Manchester City also went out in the Champions League to Real Madrid, and you can look through that game, and by almost everybody's consensus, including Carlo Ancelotti, they really should have won that game and gone through. But such is Real Madrid's ability to turn what looked like a very tough game into a win, despite it being on penalties, and probably odds-on favorites to go and win the whole competition. Manchester City are going to be sitting back relatively happy with how their season has panned out so far. They've made it to the semifinals of the FA Cup, and they're taking on Chelsea this weekend. And on top of that, they're top of the Premier League, and they didn't really have to bust that much of a gut this weekend to see both Arsenal and Liverpool descend from their crown. It's almost akin to two people walking down the street and telling each other, hey, you go first. No, you go first. Hey, wait, you go first. Then Manchester City comes in and pushes both of them aside and says, you know what, I'll go. Enough of this kumbaya. Now, Arsenal are a good team. We all know that they are. Liverpool are a good team. Liverpool a little bit more surprising because a lot of people thought they were going to be on the wane this season, despite the fact that they had given out a lot of midfielders and sold a lot of those people, like the likes of Fabinho and Henderson. Firmino left. And you thought that this was going to be a transition season for them, but they have surprised many. So for them to be in this position is incredible, and it shows just how well run that team is. And on top of that, it also shows the spirit that Jurgen Klopp is able to instill in them. Now, Arsenal, a lot of people were expecting a lot more of. Most people had them as the main challenges to Manchester City this season, simply because they surprised a lot of people last season to make a title challenge. But this season was looked as the season that they were going to kick on. But you can never really write them off as well, Manchester City in this case, because Manchester City they are incredible. And whenever you watch them, you just realize the power and the might that this team has and the depth of talent that they're able to showcase. So all this being said, their 1-0 defeat, Liverpool, to Crystal Palace was a little bit expected in my book because I had seen their trajectory going down. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about was the fact that I had, for once, not had them as my favorites to win this Premier League season. That was going to go to either Manchester City or Arsenal, because I had seen something different in Arsenal and something in Manchester City, whereas they were conceding goals, but I still have a lot of deference to the ability of Pep Guardiola to turn something into nothing most of the time, or something into something, because they do have a lot of talent. Arsenal have this thing when they tend to go through slumps. They can go on a 3 or 4 game winless run. Mikel Arteta has this trend where when his team does not perform as they're supposed to, they seem to buckle under the pressure. Whether or not this is a managerial problem or whether it is a staffing problem, as far as whether they have enough people to regenerate whatever the first team is able to do, or whether it's just a strictly personnel issue where Arsenal is a very emotional team and their emotionality tends to trend them downwards whenever they hit a roadblock, unlike Manchester City or Liverpool for that matter. That could be the only thing that would have derailed Arsenal's title challenge this season. And it seems as though that's what's taking into effect. Mikel Arteta and his team are on a 2-game losing streak, and if you include the first leg against Bayern Munich, they're on a 3-game winless run. Now, prior to that, they had displayed some very good attacking nous and some very good defensive solidity against Brighton and Manchester City. And for the most part, since the Christmas break, they had barely conceded any goals. But whenever you face a team with such strong European heritage as Bayern Munich, results that happened on Wednesday and last Tuesday are to be expected. People scoff at what footballing heritage means whenever it comes to these very tight and very delicate points at the season when you are at the business end. The fact that Joshua Kimmich and the likes of Leon Goretzka, the likes of your Musiala have seen these positions and they have been in these tough games and come out triumphant at the end is nothing to be sniffed at. And while this is Arsenal's first season back into the Champions League, it was to be expected that it was going to be a very rough patch. And if they would have made it to the semifinals and even won the whole thing, it would be unprecedented. It's extremely rare for a team on their first attempt to do this. And I think Mikel Arteta suggested that as much. But when it comes to the Premier League, Arsenal have been there now. This is their second straight title challenge, and their loss to Aston Villa was a little bit surprising. The first half was a generally decent display, but the second half showed signs of the Arsenal that tends to collapse, and where belief turned into questions, and those questions turned into panic, and Aston Villa were able to capitalize on 2 late goals from Leon Bailey and Ollie Watkins. Whether or not Arsenal are going to win the Premier League title is anybody's guess. Manchester City are firm favorites, and if I was to say anything right now, I would have them at a 90 percentile of being champions this season again and making a four-peat. But one of the things that we've come to realize is that you can't predict a season, and I was going to say that my predictions had changed and I was going to have Arsenal as the champions simply because their record and how many points and goals and their goal difference. And I had the statistics all lined up. Unfortunately, I had an exam this last week and I had a bio and a math exam, so I wasn't able to put that video out. But if you looked at Arsenal and Manchester City and Liverpool and statistically looked at historically how the champions were graded at the end of the season, only in the season when Leicester City won was a point when goal difference and attacking wise, the team that had the best goal difference and attacking wise did not win the Premier League. Usually it's one of the 3 metrics. When the goal difference is large, that means goals scored is usually large. And at that point, goals conceded didn't tend to affect the end of who won the Premier League. Now, there are seasons where the best defense won the Premier League, but over the course of the last 15 or so years, generally it's the team with the largest goal difference, the team with the most goals that has won the league. Arsenal were trending towards that, and it looked for a very long time as though their solidity would, at least in the Premier League, keep them moving forth. Their demise, at least as far as the Aston Villa game, was something that you could see progressing throughout the game. And Aston Villa got stronger, and in the second half, they seemed as though they were the more likely to score, and they pretty much dominated most of that second half. The surprise for me was a little bit more in the way Arsenal capitulated and the fact that they were very naive, and all that solidity and nous that they seemed to have gained post-Christmas seemed to go out of the window. Saliba and Gabriel were caught lacking in defense, and the fact that Emil Smith-Rowe was the person who was defending against Ollie Watkins was something that should never have happened. At the end of the day, Arsenal are going to Arsenal, and it's very hard to sit back and think of a way you can make this a positive spin other than the fact that they are going to face a team in Wolves who have not had the best of outings recently. And if Arsenal were to try and find a game to be able to win, it would possibly be this, because the rest of their run-in is looking extremely hard. Now, something that tends to happen with Arsenal is they will go on this slump. They will give you hope somewhere in the middle. They might win the Wolves game or they might win the Chelsea game. And then after that, when it seems as though they're in position to usurp Manchester City, then they'll falter again. And then inevitably in the last game against Everton, they'll beat them 99-0. So it's something that we've come to see with Arsenal. Whenever you need to win the games, they just don't seem to make it through. Now, a safe bet would possibly be that Wolverhampton Wanderers might win this game because Arsenal do tend to go on these runs when they are not winning, and it seems as though they cannot get out of that rut fast enough. And then they will surprise you with one of the games, and they'll play well and encourage you and make you think that they are going to do better, and then they won't. Liverpool's demise against Crystal Palace was not for the want of trying. Liverpool had extremely good chances all throughout the game, and it was just their profligacy that seems to always haunt them. Mo Salah is a wonderful player, and he will be a legendary figure not only for Liverpool but for the Premier League. But in this game, we saw the worst of him in the sense that he just couldn't put some of the better chances away. And Crystal Palace did have the ability to also cause Liverpool some more problems as the game progressed, and they had a couple of very good chances on the break, but Liverpool should have won this game. And the fact that we keep talking about Liverpool in this manner is something that gives them cause to worry, especially as far as Jurgen Klopp and their fans are concerned, because Liverpool create chances, they just don't put them away. And when you are looking at the teams that they're going to face, such as your Fulhams and your Tottenhams, those teams can punish you. And Liverpool don't have a problem in attack. They don't have a problem in defense. They just have a problem in finishing those chances. So the Crystal Palace defeat, while it was slightly surprising, was something that you couldn't have not said going into that game because of the Atalanta game, where you saw them miss a lot of chances and they just weren't able to put them away. Crystal Palace is a team right now that is scraping for everything that they could get, and so they were always going to be a lot more defensive when they faced Liverpool. And if Liverpool weren't going to be able to break them down, and if they were going to waste their chances, of course they were going to lose that game. Now, coming up, Liverpool are going to be able, in my opinion, mentally to stand the test of what's going to be ahead of them. I think Liverpool are better suited than Arsenal to approach these games because they still have the mentality monster that is Jurgen Klopp. That's not to say that Arsenal might not be able to do it, but if I was to put more faith in a basket, I would put it in the Liverpool basket before, because they've done it before. They have been able to power through the end of the season. And Arsenal, as we know, are still a very highly emotional team. And while Liverpool are the same, Liverpool tend to conjure up a different type of emotionality to where they will use that to fuel the result, rather than Arsenal, who seem to capitulate under this type of pressure. I mean, we've seen it before with Manchester City when they went 2 goals down against Aston Villa 2 seasons back. And the mentality for them to score 3 goals in the space of about 10 minutes was great to see. And you just don't see that with this Arsenal side. When they seem to go 1 goal down, it seems as though that's it. Liverpool, on the other hand, have shown that they can come back from 1 goal down, and I believe they've collected the most points from losing positions recently as far as the whole season goes. So I have more faith in Liverpool being able to conjure up a win than Arsenal. So where does this leave me as far as my predictions right now? I don't have any because we don't know. I will say that the greater chance of Manchester City coming out as champion is much higher. And Manchester City, as I said, I will give them a 90%. I know Opta has them at 70%, but I will give Manchester City 90% because there is nothing in their history to suggest that they won't be able to do that. But anyway, guys, let me know what you think. I just thought that I'd come over here and let you guys know what my thoughts about last week's games were. I was unable to put out a video because I had 2 really important exams that I needed to execute. And unlike Arsenal, I managed to pass both of them. But anyway, guys, up until the next time, it's your boy Izzy, missing you as always. I hope you've missed me just as much as I missed you. And until the next video, because I will be back this weekend, I promise I will have some stuff to talk about. Peace.